here is the front of a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, and here is the rear of a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport. And you might have seen on the last main channel video that we started rebuilding the Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, which is Alex's, which is just...
Bugatti CEO made a 10-minute video. FXAlexG destroyed it in 2 comments. And Mate Armstrong just responded to all of it in a way that nobody at Bugatti was prepared for. The tables have turned completely. The most expensive automotive drama on YouTube just reached a moment that changes everything. And if you have been following this story from the beginning, what you are about to hear is the chapter that makes every previous chapter make sense. Let us start with exactly what happened, because the sequence of events that led to this moment is so perfectly constructed, so precisely timed, so loaded with a specific kind of human drama that makes millions of people stop whatever they are doing and press play, that it almost defies belief. Bugatti CEO Mate Rimac posted a 10-minute video to Instagram. 10 minutes. The CEO of one of the most exclusive car manufacturers in the world spent 10 minutes of his life making a video response to a YouTube rebuild project. Think about what that tells you about how seriously Bugatti is taking the situation. Because CEOs of billion-dollar companies do not make 10-minute Instagram videos about things that do not concern them. They do not invest that kind of personal time and personal credibility in situations they consider minor. Mate Rimac made that video because Mate Armstrong's rebuild had gotten under Bugatti's skin in a way that their corporate communications team could no longer manage with silence. And the moment Rimac pressed post, the moment that video went live and the internet got hold of it, everything changed. Because FXAlexG was waiting, and FXAlexG had something to say. But before we get to what FXAlexG said, and why those 2 comments destroyed Bugatti's entire position, we need to understand exactly what Mate Rimac said in that 10-minute video. Because context is everything. And the context of Rimac's statement, the specific claims he made and the specific tone he took, is what made FXAlex's response so devastatingly effective. Rimac's video made several distinct arguments. The first was about safety. That a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport is so extraordinarily complex, so far beyond the capability of independent repair, that attempting to rebuild one outside the factory network posed genuine safety risks that Bugatti felt morally obligated to address publicly. The second was about parts. Rimac directly challenged the prices that had been discussed in videos about the rebuild, claiming that most of what the public had heard about Bugatti service, repair, and maintenance costs was simply not true. And the third was an offer. The car was welcome in Molsheim. Bugatti would fix it, in their factory, on their terms, at their price. That was the official position of Bugatti Rimac, as delivered personally by their CEO in a 10-minute video that the automotive world watched with a specific, focused attention of people who understood they were watching something historically unusual. And then FXAlexG commented, twice, and everything Rimac had built in 10 minutes came apart in 2 sentences. Because here is what FXAlexG knew that Rimac's video did not acknowledge. Here is a detail that the Bugatti CEO's carefully prepared statement left out. The reason the car was not at Bugatti in Molsheim was not because Mate Armstrong had swooped in and taken it before Bugatti could get involved. The reason it was not at Bugatti was because FXAlexG had made a deliberate choice not to send it there, a choice based on a specific personal, deeply felt concern about what would happen if the car went to Molsheim. FXAlex's concern was not abstract. It was not based on distrust of Bugatti's technical capability. It was based on something more practical and more human than that. He was worried that as soon as the car arrived at Bugatti's factory, in France it would stay there, that the stripping process would begin and the discovery of new problems would follow, and the price would climb and climb until the number reached a point where the car effectively became Bugatti's possession rather than his, that the repair process would become a financial trap, that he could not exit without abandoning the car entirely. And when FXAlexG put that concern into his comments, when he made it public in a specific, direct, unambiguous way that only someone with first-hand knowledge of the situation can, the entire framing of Rimac's video shifted. Suddenly, it was not a safety argument. It was a trust argument. And trust is a very different battlefield. Now, let us talk about Mate Armstrong's response. Because Mate Armstrong's position in this moment required a kind of careful navigation that he handled with a grace that his most cynical critics were not fully prepared for. Because Matt Armstrong did not want a war. That is the thing that gets lost in the drama of this story. He never wanted a war. He wanted a solution. A practical, reasonable, financially achievable solution that respected FXAlexG's ownership of the car and allowed the rebuild to proceed without the kind of corporate obstruction that was making every step more difficult and more expensive than it needed to be. And when Matt Armstrong responded publicly to Rimac's video, when he made his own position clear to the millions of people watching the story unfold, what he said was not what the internet expected. It was not aggressive. It was not triumphant. It was not the victory lap of someone who felt they had already won. It was a genuine, honest, almost disarming statement of intent from someone who had been shocked to discover that the CEO of Bugatti was watching his videos, and had been even more shocked when that CEO made a response video about them. The specific words Matt Armstrong used in his response deserve to be understood in their full context. Because when he said it was absolutely mental that the CEO of Bugatti was watching his videos, he was not being falsely modest. He was expressing genuine surprise. The surprise of someone who started his YouTube journey rebuilding his girlfriend's crashed Audi TT, and had never imagined that the journey would lead to a place where the head of one of the world's most exclusive automotive brands was personally engaging with his content. And that surprise, that genuine human reaction to an extraordinary situation, was one of the most authentic moments in a story that has produced many authentic moments. Because authenticity, in the world Matt Armstrong has built his entire career in, is the only currency that truly matters. And in that moment of genuine surprise, expressed honestly on camera to the audience that had followed every step of this journey, Matt Armstrong reminded everyone watching exactly why they were watching. Because he is real, and real is everything. But here is what nobody fully appreciated about Matt Armstrong's response, until full implications of what he said became clear. Here is the detail that looked like a simple statement of intent, but was actually the most strategically significant thing he said in the entire exchange. He offered to waive his rights. He said publicly on camera, to his audience of millions, that he would agree to accept full responsibility for the rebuild, that he would sign away any warranty claims, that he would take on every liability associated with an independent rebuild of a Bugatti Chiron per Sport, and ask nothing of Bugatti in return except the ability to buy the parts he needed at a fair price. Think about what that offer did to Bugatti's safety argument. Because Bugatti's primary stated objection to the rebuild was safety, the concern that an independent rebuild could not meet the standards required for a car of this specification to be safely operated. And Matt Armstrong's offer to accept full responsibility removed Bugatti from that equation completely. If he accepted all liability, if he signed every waiver and took on every risk, Bugatti's safety concern became a concern about something they had explicitly been released from responsibility for. And a safety concern you have been released from responsibility for is not a safety concern anymore. It is something else. And the automotive world watching this exchange understood exactly what it was. Now let us talk about FXAlexG's role in the story in more depth, because Alex Gonzalez is not a passive figure in this narrative. He is not simply the person whose crash started everything. He is an active participant with his own perspective, his own grievances, his own experience of dealing with Bugatti that predates the crash and predates Matt Armstrong's involvement. And that experience, the specific history of FXAlexG's relationship with Bugatti as a customer, as someone who spent multiple millions of dollars on one of their cars and then discovered what that ownership actually meant when things went wrong, is the foundation of everything the two comments accomplished. Because FXAlexG was not commenting as an outsider. He was commenting as someone who had sat across a table from Bugatti, who had heard their proposals, who had been given their numbers, who had experienced firsthand what it felt like to be a Bugatti owner in a situation where Bugatti had all the leverage and was not shy about using it. And when he chose to make those experiences public, to expose the specific broken promises and the specific moments where Bugatti stayed a position and their actual behavior had diverged, the 10-minute CEO video did not just look incomplete, it looked deliberately incomplete. And deliberately incomplete in a conversation this public is another way of saying misleading. The broken promises that FXAlexG exposed deserve to be understood in their full significance. Because promises made by a manufacturer to a customer about what will happen to their car if they bring it in for repair are not casual statements. They are representations. They create expectations. They influence decisions. And when those representations are made and then not honored, when the expectations they created prove to be different from the reality that emerges, the person who relied on those representations has a legitimate grievance that no amount of CEO Instagram videos can simply talk over. FXAlex's concern that the car would go to Motium and not come back without a bill that exceeded any reasonable expectation was not paranoia. It was not unfounded suspicion. It was a concern grounded in specific experiences and specific information that he had received through his direct dealings with Bugatti over the specific car. And when he made that grounding explicit in his comments, when he attached specific details to a concern that Bugatti had been treating as vague and irrational, the entire dynamic of the public conversation shifted in a way that Rimac's PR team could not quickly recover from. And here's where the story reveals something that goes beyond the specific dispute between Bugatti and Mate Armstrong and FXAlexG. Here is the broader truth that this exchange exposed about the relationship between ultra-luxury manufacturers and the people who buy their products. The relationship is not equal. It has never been equal. When you buy a Bugatti, you do not become a customer in the conventional sense. You become a participant in a relationship that Bugatti controls, where the terms are set by the manufacturer, where the support is conditional on compliance with those terms, where the exclusivity that justified the purchase price comes packaged with a set of obligations and limitations that are not always fully disclosed at the point of sale. Most Bugatti customers never discover this asymmetry, because most Bugatti customers never need to. Their cars do not get crashed during stunts. Their vents do not get locked. Their repair requests do not get refused. The relationship works smoothly because the specific stresses that reveal its terms never arise. But when those stresses do arise, when the car